was on purpose. All right, and I think we're ready to get started whenever Kurt. Perfect. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this breakout. It's Bridging the Digital Divide, Advocacy and Public-Private Partnerships. My name is Dina Lehmann-Kim, and I manage the Public Housing Connect Home USA initiative, which is HUD's Digital Inclusion Initiative. I'll be your moderator for the session, and I will get to talk a little bit about Connect Home USA, which is one of my favorite topics. This topic is very timely, not least of which because of the incredible amount of federal funding that was just released last week. But for those of us who've been working in the world of digital inclusion for a long time, the importance of bringing affordable internet access to low income populations has been very clear. And to build off of the housing is motto, I suppose, to us, internet access is education, internet access is opportunity, internet access is healthcare, and above all, internet access is equity. So the pandemic shed a huge spotlight on this issue, and I think for those of us who understood it already, it was no big. We already said, okay, this is in a way it's a silver lining because it's showing to the rest of the world why this issue is important, and so now it's more broadly understood and recognized as a problem that needs to be solved. So today you're going to hear from a wonderful panel, a mix of organizations that have been doing this work for a long time, predating the pandemic, and who have all been very committed to this work. We will spend time with presentations, but most of the time will be spent with addressing any questions you might have about this work. So let me introduce our panel. To my left is Kurt Peluso. He is the Senior Director of Programs and Partnerships for EveryoneOn. He has been with the organization for 8 years, focused on digital equity. Prior to working for EveryoneOn, he worked for the YMCA, developing programs to support the community. And fun fact, he's his town's mayor. To his left is Allison Strobel. Allison is the Chief of Staff at the Jersey City Housing Authority, where she coordinates strategic interdepartmental collaboration and operations. She also oversees JCHA's Department of Resident Empowerment and Community Engagement, which partners with dozens of local, state, and national organizations to offer a range of services and referral resources to GCHA's nearly 15,000 residents. REIS partnerships focus on youth development and recreation, employment and training, digital inclusion, senior services, and physical and mental wellness. And then we're going to hear from colleague Araceli Hernandez, who is with the Housing Authority of the City of LA. She's joining us virtually. I don't know if you can see her yet, but Araceli is a program specialist in the Strategic Initiatives Department of HACLA. She is responsible for overseeing HACLA's computer labs. She leads education initiatives and digital inclusion strategies for the Housing Authority. And last but not least is Virginia Lamb Abrams, who I've had the pleasure of working with for a long time. Virginia is Executive Vice President of Government Affairs and Strategic Advancement at Starry, a fixed wireless broadband provider. She also leads the company's digital equity program, Starry Connect, which works specifically with public and affordable housing owners to bring low and no-cost broadband service to residents. She's deeply passionate about advocating for policies that increase competition, consumer choice, and equity in the broadband space, and brings more than 20 years of experience in government, media, technology, and real estate to her work at Starry. So to get us started, I'm going to turn the mic over to Kurt for you to talk about the work you've been doing.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us after lunch. And it's sometimes the toughest session to be a part of. So my name is Kurt Peluso. As mentioned, I'm the Senior Director of Programs and Partnerships for EveryoneOn. And this is a really exciting time for the work that we do. I feel like we've been the student in the back of the room yelling, hey, look at us, this is really important. And no one's paid attention. And unfortunately, we had a massive national pandemic. And finally, people are like, oh, yes, this is important. We do need to get people connected. So we're really focused on getting those resources and getting the message out of how we get this work done. EveryoneOn has been a nonprofit working in this field since 2012. To date, we have connected over 1 million people to the internet. We have brought over thousands of devices to people's hands, and we're also expanding our digital literacy to not just focus on basic digital skills on how to get onto a computer, but also focusing more on workforce development, how to get seniors the medical needs they need through the internet, and also online shopping, where I know a lot of people who live in urban communities are living in food deserts. So how do we get food to them if there aren't food stores nearby? We've always felt that the internet should be treated as a utility, and we're not there yet, but we're making steps in that direction. And one of the focuses we now have is more on public advocacy. So I've been working a lot with the federal government, with state agencies, to make sure that they are providing the resources they need to the communities, and also at the local level with different municipalities. With the affordable connectivity program that's been initiated, hopefully, just show of hands, everyone's aware of that. Fantastic. So we're really focused on making sure that resource is available and people know what's going on. So we really encourage people to visit our website, EveryoneOn.org, where if you type in your zip code, you'll see all the low-cost offers that are available within your community. So you'll see ISPs like Starry, if they're in your neighborhood, some Comcast, AT&T. We're agnostic. We work with everyone. And full disclosure, we don't get a cut if you sign up for any of them. We just do the service for free. And you'll also see a link for the Affordable Connectivity Program. And you'll see a link on our page for any resources you have, any questions you have to help you get people connected. The biggest thing that we've seen now that the numbers are starting, of course, they're going back up, but when they were going down, I was doing a lot more traveling, going to El Paso, Milwaukee, Los Angeles. And the big thing that we found out is a lot of people don't know that this program even exists. I spent 3 hours in a public library in downtown Milwaukee and just telling people who are walking through about this program, and they couldn't believe it. And we have so many testimonials now of how much it's going to mean to those individuals, because either they don't have internet and they need it, or they have it and they're paying $75, $100 a month. Again, that $30 subsidy to knock down the price is going to go such a long way. So our big thing right now at EveryoneOn is really talking about that advocacy, getting groups like yourselves to really start pushing that message out, getting the information in your community, and using us as a resource. So if you do have any questions, concerns, definitely let us know. We'll share any information we have. We also sometimes, as a nonprofit 501c3, get funding to help support communities. So we're really excited with the partnership we're doing with Jersey City Housing Authority, with Allison, where we got funding from the Carnegie Foundation, and we're doing workforce development courses there. So since January it started. So anyone who signed up for this program, we gave them a free laptop so they could always have a device. We did enrollment for the Affordable Connectivity Program, and we also paid for a full year membership for LinkedIn Learning. And once a week, they have office hours where the attendance has been phenomenal. Out of the 20 students, we have an average of 16 attending a week, where they check in on their work and they're getting these free LinkedIn Learning professional certifications to build on their resumes. And if there's any test they need to take, we provide the funding for them to take the test. If there's any issues with the computers, we swap them out and get a new one. But we're really excited to bring that opportunity and partner with anyone who's interested in looking for funding opportunities to get those resources in your hands, so your communities can thrive from that as well. That's a little bit of EveryoneOn and what we do, and look forward to having a conversation with everyone later.
Thanks, Kurt. And I should say that EveryoneOn was instrumental in the success of Connect Home, which I'll talk about now shortly, briefly. So Connect Home began in 2015 as a demonstration to close the homework gap, which was understood at the time and still today as the problem of children going to school. They have internet access, they come home, and it's basically lights out. So the demonstration was designed to test how well the government could work with industry and nonprofit organizations to accelerate broadband adoption in HUD-assisted homes. We asked the communities to address the three legs of the proverbial digital inclusion stool: affordable internet access, affordable devices, and digital literacy training. All those three things need to go together. We also asked communities to partner with their mayor, municipal government to commit to narrow the digital divide in their communities, develop a plan to promote and expand broadband access, leverage at least 2 or more federal place-based initiatives, and have 1 or more internet service providers to ensure a competitive marketplace. We also asked communities, as they got started, to hold a local convening, to bring local partners and potential partners to the table to talk about their plan and to enlist support. And this proved to be a key ingredient to success. Essentially, it's the collective impact model where you have one organization who's serving as the lead and keeping all of the other partners moving along towards the same goal of closing, in this case, the digital divide. And usually in the Connect Home world, that quarterback is the PHA. So in 2017, based on the early success of Connect Home, we launched in partnership with EveryoneOn the expansion program, which was rebranded to be Connect Home USA. And we committed to reaching 100 communities by 2020, which we accomplished together. And Jersey City is one of the communities that joined the expansion, and Hacla is one of the communities that joined the pilot. So lots of experience to share from both of them. What did we learn in the process? Strong PHA leadership support for this work is critical. Thank you. A staff person whose job it is to lead the work is also essential. Strong ties and a good working relationship with the city is key. No one organization, regardless of how much funding they have, can solve the problem alone. You need partnerships, which you'll hear more about. Resident engagement is also important in the design and implementation of the program. This ensures not only that their needs and interests are met, but it helps lend legitimacy to the program. And importantly, internet service is just one part of the solution. Again, you need those affordable devices and training. And just briefly, where are we going from here? Congress has expressed their interest in the program and encouraged HUD to expand the initiative, which we are going to do later this year. We're going to be using a tiered model where we're going to accept communities in sort of a first or beginning tier and then assist them along the way to achieve key milestones that will allow them to move up to a second and third and maybe even a fourth tier. We are going to include key lessons from the prior iterations of the initiative. Okay, and with that, I'm going to pass the baton over to Allison from JCHA.
Thanks so much, Dina, and thank you all for being here. So I'm going to give a brief background of JCHA's participation in Connect Home USA. And Dina, hopefully I'm not misspeaking, but I think the beauty of Connect Home USA, while unfunded, is that they have a fantastic playbook and resources, monthly or quarterly webinars and newsletters, all in partnership with EveryoneOn that were really critical to us getting the program standing. So we joined Connect Home USA in late 2018 and hosted our first convening very shortly thereafter, bringing together city government agencies and nonprofit partners, the school district, and a range of agencies that we've been working with as residents. And over the next few months also conducted a survey to better understand the access and connectivity that our residents had and what their needs might be. And the data that we found based on about 300 or 350 responses was in keeping with the national data that HUD and EveryoneOn collected, which was that about a third of our residents had any internet connection at all. But of that third, more than 2/3 of them, the only device that they had was a cell phone. So we sort of launched programming to try and bring devices to residents. We worked with a local computer refurbishing organization called Electronic Access Foundation, and we're able to develop computer labs at 4 of our public housing developments. They also provided laptops, which we gave to 15 participants who attended 5 or more in a 12-week series of digital literacy classes that we hosted in partnership with 4 or 5 different nonprofits. And we partnered with T-Mobile to provide tablets to 50 seniors at one of our larger senior developments. So Dina mentioned the 3-legged stool. We kind of launched the program focusing on affordable devices and digital literacy. And after those initial achievements, we really turned our focus and started investigating and gathering information about broadband infrastructure. And that was in early 2020. So the pandemic kind of dragged out the process and the conversations that we had, but we spoke to probably about 6 different internet service providers or telecommunication organizations, including Starry, just to learn what broadband infrastructure is and what it looks like, what it costs. And from talking to those organizations and talking to residents, we learned a number of things. So one, residents told us that existing low-cost internet options for low-income households were not sufficient for a number of reasons. Barriers to entry included credit checks or annual contracts that were just untenable for residents, either because they wouldn't pass or they just weren't comfortable, they didn't have a credit card, it just was inaccessible to them. And then the speed, even if they could get the plans, a lot of those plans meet only the bare minimum, the FCC definition of high-speed broadband, which is 25.3. Those numbers didn't mean much to me initially, but after lots and lots of conversations and some research, I came to learn that really that's not even sufficient. It's just sufficient for streaming on one device. So if you're a family of 4 during the pandemic, you've got 2 kids who are trying to use Google Classroom to do all of their learning, and maybe you're trying to, use Zoom for your job, it's not possible. And no one will be able to do anything. And then in addition to issues of speed, there are data caps on a lot of low cost plans. So essentially, most data caps are below about 5 gigabytes, and you need at least that much to be able to stream about an hour a day. I think probably none of us in this room stream less than an hour a day between Zoom and media usage, video calls with family and friends. So essentially the plans and the devices were not useful and not meeting the needs of the households. I should also mention that, the 25.3 megabits per second plans that are often the best that you can get as a low income household pre the ACP and the EBB FCC programs. The lowest speeds that a standard package offered by most internet service providers are 100 megabits per second symmetrical, or 200 megabits per second symmetrical speeds. So it's really, not a package that they're selling to anybody else. The last thing that we learned in these conversations was about digital redlining and digital discrimination. So we learned that while on maps of Jersey City, and it's a dense urban area, it looks like there's an internet provider for every resident on every street, that really while there might be wires in the street, they're not actually connected to the households, to the units themselves. So what we ended up doing was developing bid specifications and putting out a public bid in early 2021. And we aligned it to what we knew was feasible from talking to partners like Starry and some other ISPs, what sort of their standard packages were, and knowing what was needed for a family to really have truly affordable, truly high-speed internet. So our bid specifications were that the speed of the internet needed to be 30 megabits per second symmetrical speed, that the introductory cost should be no more than $10 a month for 2 months, and that the maximum cost thereafter would be no more than $20 a month. And again, this was a few months before the EBB was announced or became available. At the time, HUD only allowed PHAs to invest in broadband infrastructure. PHA funds were not permitted to pay for the broadband connection to the home for the end user. So we structured the bid in this way so that we could support at a cost of about $11 per unit the infrastructure investment, while demanding that the cost be low for our residents. Ultimately, we contracted with 2 internet service providers, including Starry. 6 of our developments will be wired, connecting 1,500 units, probably within the next month or 2. To date, we have 3 developments live. One of them went live in November, one just last month, and another one will be coming online within a matter of weeks. And we already have a 30% adoption rate at the 2 sites that are live, which I think is tremendous. And both of the providers that we're working with are approved for the FCC's ACP program, so the internet is entirely. We've been working really hard the last year or so on promoting the EBB and now the ACP. And as we've been able to address this community Wi-Fi solutions through the contracts that we have with the ISPs, we've returned our focus to devices and digital literacy and been fortunate to have a couple grants from AARP and also the COVID relief funding from CLAFA, which allowed us to get 83 devices into the hands of students and seniors earlier last year. And as Kurt mentioned, we're also thrilled to be working with EveryoneOn in the Workforce Development Initiative and providing laptops and support for the digital learning that those participants are doing. The next phase for us is going to be diving deeper into digital redlining and discrimination and looking at how we as a PHA can begin to effectively advocate at the municipal and the state level for better connectivity and access for especially the 5,000 households that we have in our HCVP program across the city and across New Jersey.
Thank you, Allison. Now I'll turn it over to Araceli from HACLA, who is joining us virtually.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. Thanks, Araceli.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to join you, even if virtually. I wish I could be there in person, but thank you so much. Again, my name is Araceli Hernandez, Administrative Program Specialist here at the Housing Authority with the City of Los Angeles. I have the pleasure of representing our agency today to talk a little bit more about our digital inclusion efforts and just being here with all of you today and just sharing some really great highlights that we've been doing. So I think first we should talk a little bit about our mission statement. So our mission statement, we are committed to preserving, enhancing, and expanding deeply affordably housing and improving the quality of life for Angelenos with the focus on people, place, and pathways to opportunities. So those are our three key strategies. Specifically with people, we do focus on resident leadership. We have a resident advisory council that we work very closely with. We also have our community health programs, our public safety, trauma-informed service delivery. In regards to place, our housing strategy is to provide them with more resources to access. There's lots of families that are currently living in public housing that were formerly homeless. So we're very proud to provide them with a home and a place where they can continue to develop and uplift our residents as we serve them again through our resident leadership opportunities, our health and wellness efforts, our workforce development, as well as our education partnerships that are located on site. We also have a nonprofit affiliate called Build Hope Inc., where we have the opportunity to raise additional funds. It does provide a level of flexibility for capital improvements, workforce development, public safety, wellness, and educational and digital initiatives. We're also proud to be part of the Connect Home campaign. HACLA was part of the first cohort in the Connect Home campaign. And so we've been part of the Connect Home efforts, which has helped us roll out multiple digital initiative strategies with the support of HUD, as well as multiple partners. So again, the Connect Home campaign, as you all probably know very well, has helped us bridge the digital divide to enhance equity and access among residents residing in communities, again, served by the Housing Authority of the City of Los Angeles. And also, we were a recipient of the National Demonstration Grant, which allowed us to launch the Community Health Worker Program, specifically at Nickerson Gardens, which is our largest public housing site west of the Mississippi River. And this program was really focused on telehealth needs. We really had to pivot even more so during the pandemic and make sure that we were providing residents with COVID-19 access, highlighting, again, the digital access needs and training. I think that really came about, especially during the pandemic, which allowed us to expand the community health worker program into the digital ambassador program, which I have the pleasure of overseeing. And we have the opportunity to provide digital literacy training to residents between the ages of 18 to 24. It is a train the trainer model. We partnered very closely with EveryoneOn, which allowed them to provide us with the training for residents who lack basic digital skills training. They help us with resident outreach, promote services and resources. So there's so much great work that's been happening with so many different partners, with the mayor's office here in Los Angeles, which has also helped us bring in more public and private partnerships, build relationships with Starry, with just so many different key providers to address our digital inclusion needs. So I'm excited to talk a little bit more about our partnership with Starry, with EveryoneOn. There's been a number of digital devices that have been given to our public housing residents, specifically hotspots and laptops, as part of our, again, our digital equity and access efforts, and has been accompanied by the digital literacy skills that have been provided either by EveryoneOn or directly in-house here at HACLA. So along with that, we also have 10 computer labs that are co-located across our public housing sites. These are critical spaces that serve as employment technology centers, where residents come in to do job searching. They also serve as extended supports for our youth beyond the classroom. You know, residents come in to print forms, stay connected with family, and all of these sites stayed open during the pandemic. Especially, we never closed down. These were essential services for our community. So again, looking forward to having a deeper discussion and answering any questions that may arise.
Thank you, Araceli. I'll now pass the mic over to Virginia.
Thank you. And it's great to be in a room with so many people who are so laser focused on really trying to find practical solutions to closing the digital divide. And I like to think that our company, Starry, which is a fixed wireless broadband provider, and in normal layman speak is we are an innovative wireless provider that brings internet connectivity to communities using our proprietary wireless technology to connect them to really high speed, affordable access. And that really was the founding premise of our company, was that we could develop technology to really lower the cost of building networks and connecting families to affordable, reliable, high-speed internet. Because we knew in this country, all of you are consumers of internet access at home, that most people don't have a choice in this country. And when you have a marketplace that is largely a monopoly or duopoly structure, that means that prices are high and often quality of service is low. And so we created this entire company around this premise that we could build technology to do it better. And I have the privilege of running our Starry Connect program, which is our digital equity program that we launched in 2018. And we launched it in 2018 in direct reaction to the feedback that we were hearing in the community with affordable housing owners that we were working with to bring our service to their residents, to the great folks at HUD led by Dina that were telling us that what was working in the marketplace today with affordable broadband programs was not working for residents. And so when we set up our Starry Connect program, we did it very intentionally to solve two key barriers that we saw. The first being the actual service plan that was being offered to residents. We said we can do better. Allison was being generous, but if we go back in our time machine, most of these plans were actually only 10 megabits down, 1 megabit up. That was the original Comcast plan. And all of you know, 10.1, you can't do anything on 10.1. Your phone gets faster than 10.1. And so the first thing that we wanted to solve with our Starry Connect program was design it around a service plan that was going to be really robust to support multiple devices doing lots of things at the same time. And so our baseline service plan for Starry Connect starts at 30 megabits symmetrical speeds. And I really emphasize the word symmetrical because, as we all know, and we all have learned through the pandemic, it's not enough just to have download capacity. But if you're going to do things like video conferencing, and for the folks who are online, you're doing it right now, you have to have really robust upload capacity to have a seamless experience. And so that we created as our baseline speed plan for our Connect program. The second piece was, and we heard this time and time again, okay, the broadband access is there, but people can't afford it, and they can't get past the credit check application processes, the 15 different applications they have to fill out in order to even get access to it. And so we said, let's do things differently. Let's work directly with public and affordable housing owners to get rid of individual eligibility requirements, to get rid of credit checks and say, hey, we're going to qualify you based on your premise. So if you live in a PHA, if you live in an affordable housing community that's a part of our program, any one of your residents, when they go to sign up for internet service with Starry, they will automatically be offered the low-cost plan, no questions asked. And what that does is a couple things. One, it just removes barriers, the check this box, fill in this application, photocopy a form of this, send me this pay stub. It takes that out of the mix. But what it also does is it says to a resident that you get access to really high quality broadband without having to tell me 5 different ways that you're poor. And that restoration of dignity to us was really, really critical and important. So we launched this program in 2018 with one partner, the Boston Housing Authority. God bless them for being our first partner. And at the end of 2019, we ended the program with about 9,000 units of public and affordable housing participating in our program. As we all know, and that in 2019, we were also privileged to be granted Connect Home USA stakeholder status, which was wonderful. But then we all know what happened in 2020, and our company made a commitment to supercharge our Starry Connect program and grow it. And we went from 9,000 units at the beginning of the year to more than 29,000 units at the end of 2020 that participate in our Starry Connect program, to the following year, again, almost doubling the size of the program to more than 55,000 units participating in our Starry Connect program. And we just released our first quarter numbers. Our Connect program has now grown to more than 63,000 units that all have Starry Connect available in them, including 9 PHAs, including HACLA, JCHA, Metro West, Innovative Housing Concepts, the Denver Housing Authority, the Boston Housing Authority, Brookline, Cambridge, NYCHA. It has been a groundswell. And our goal with Starry Connect was first and foremost, deliver great service and lower barriers. But then the next key part of that is deep, deep engagement with our partners. And that's what I hope we'll talk about today, about why our partnerships, particularly with HACLA, and since we just started a partnership with JCHA and we're already seeing such great engagement, why it's important to have deep engagement between your providers and the housing owner. And then the last piece of it is what we see as our role as advocates and conveners to bring together partners to solve that 3-legged stool of connectivity. So we're a broadband company. We're going to do our job and do it well and bring connectivity there. But we also see it as our role to be a connector, to bring partners like Microsoft, who's one of our key partners on the affordable device side, to digital literacy programs like EveryoneOn and Tech Goes Home, and all these other folks that work in this space, that we're making sure that when we partner with the community, that we're bringing to bear all of those relationships to the benefit of our partners. And that's really all Starry Connect is about. Get broadband where it's needed most, and make sure that we connect all of the dots to ensure that we really truly achieve not just digital connectivity, but inclusion, equity, and progress.
We have 2 mics now. Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. Thank you so much, Virginia. That was excellent. Yes. And so now we're opening it up to questions, and a mic will be coming your way in just a second. But while that's happening, let me ask you all a question. And this is sort of an entry-level question. If a PHA is new to this field of digital inclusion, where do you recommend they start?
So like I mentioned at the start, I would definitely point anyone who hasn't delved into this work yet to the Connect Home USA playbook, which is available online. And then it just, the more partners locally that you can speak to, the better. Talking to your local ISP, whoever they are, learning about their packages and plans and whether they serve your area. If there are multiple ISPs in your area, the more the merrier, and the better it probably will be for your residents to understand what their offerings are and what possible barriers might be. And like I mentioned, I'll just say if it sounds too good to be true, it might be. I mentioned a tablet program that we had for seniors. Those tablets, as an example, had a data cap of 2 gigabytes. And maybe on the 3rd or 4th day of the monthly billing cycle, we would get a half a dozen calls from seniors saying, my tablet's broken. So it took us entirely too long, because we're not IT folks, we're resident services folks, to figure out that nothing was wrong with the tablet. They'd blown through their data. So getting really granular, whoever you're talking to, whatever the program is, whatever the offering is, how much RAM does the laptop have that you want to give me? If the device is refurbished, what's on it? Or, can you put Microsoft Suite on there? What, getting really into the weeds in terms of the speed and the data caps and understanding the needs of the residents, I think is a really important starting place. And then on the digital literacy side, we recognize, and I think, we've heard this over and over again in all of the sessions yesterday and today, that PHAs can be sort of the conveners and develop the partnerships. We don't always have the expertise. So we don't lead digital literacy classes. We rely on partners. We work with our local public library. We work with several different workforce development training programs, and they'll come in and they'll, use the computers to do resume writing workshops or teach people how to look for jobs on LinkedIn, but they'll also spend time teaching very basic computer skills, how to turn the computer on, how to press shift and one to get an exclamation point. They've been wonderful, wonderful partners in this work. So all the folks that you're already working with, they can probably find somewhere where the work that they do in their mission connects with digital literacy and the world of the web.
Thank you so much. I think we're ready for your question.
If I could just add just one thing, no
Please,
problem.
Please.
I really want to echo those comments about finding local partners. We've been to so many communities where there's a PHA that wants to go and do this work. And as mentioned, you go to Connect Home USA, you'll get the whole playbook. But then you might find out that your library or school district is doing something similar. And if you could bring the whole team involved, the mayor's office, it goes such a long way. You can pull all your resources together and do so much more. The other thing is you really need to assign people within your staff to kind of lead this effort. And I really encourage you to have not a Vista do it. I won't call out the PHAs that have done that in the past, but often, as you know, a Vista's there for a couple of years, then they leave, and then the whole work will kind of fall apart. And it's good to have multiple people so that, God forbid someone leaves for another opportunity, you have someone else and the ball's not dropped, and you can keep running with, keep running with it. So like having multiple employees within your staff that oversee this work goes a long way.
Excellent points. Excellent points. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. So I come from an affordable housing nonprofit in Los Angeles, and so it's a little different, I think. So I'm curious how we get involved in this space, if it's very similar to what you've shared, Allison, or, and then you also made a comment earlier about you've already applied, and so now it's free to all of your residents. So I'm just wondering, from an affordable housing developer's perspective that also owns affordable housing that's funded through a lot of the HUD programs and many other programs, how do we get into that space?
As a provider, and I'm happy to talk to you afterwards because we obviously have a large footprint in Los Angeles serving both HACLA as well as affordable housing owners. I mean, it really is, I think first and foremost, the first step is doing an infrastructure inventory within your current stock of housing. I don't know if it's new builds or if it's existing that's being rehabbed or if it's aging, but understanding the condition of the infrastructure in your building is always the first step. And then understanding if you have providers in your building today, who are they? And then the next step, and assuming you do have a baseline of providers in your building and assuming that they aren't necessarily today living up to the highest level of service quality and making that service readily and affordably available to your residents, then the next step would be to see who are the other providers, new providers in your area. Starry is a new provider, but there are dozens of other ISPs, I'll call them sort of startups or local internet service providers that absolutely are looking to continue to extend their reach. Reaching out, we work with, like I said, over 63,000 units of public and affordable housing, literally dozens of affordable housing owners from for-profit large entities like Related Affordable all the way down to smaller nonprofits. And our goal is to bring connectivity in the best way possible for your residents. And because your community is affordable, through our Starry Connect program, then 100% of your residents would be automatically eligible for the ACP subsidy, which is the federal $30 subsidy for residents to get access to home broadband. So there are a lot of different ways to slice it. If you do have existing providers, your residents are eligible for the subsidy through their provider. The catch is, do they have a low cost plan that the subsidy can fully cover for your residents so that the cost to them is zero? And that's our goal. We have a special 100 megabit plan that is fully covered by the ACP for $30. Like literally the price is zero for residents. So the first step is figure out, what infrastructure do you have in your building? Who are your current providers today? Can you bring in new providers and get started with those conversations? And don't be shy about asking providers, okay, great, you're bringing connectivity. I'm making these residents available to you as customers. What more can you do for me? And, you know, if it's Starry, we're going to say, great. It starts with deep engagement. It starts with our team coming in and doing office hours, you know, with your residents and bringing in partners, talking to you about how we can do affordable device access. And, you know, if it's other providers, hopefully they're doing the same. But you should never feel shy about saying, look, because at the end of the day, all ISPs, they are for-profit entities. They want customers. You have customers. Use that leverage in the discussions to say, hey, I'm bringing something of value to you. So how can you help me and be a partner with me?
I'll just add to Virginia's answer something that's again in the weeds, which is that and some of you may have heard this over the last 2 days, but the ACP application is challenging. Our JCHA's digital inclusion coordinator, Devin Montserrat, developed tips and tricks sheet that we shared with Connect Home USA, and they've recently published some details similar. I don't know how, I haven't looked at it closely.
We call it a mini guide.
So they have a mini guide for you know, successfully completing the ACP application. So I would recommend that in tandem with what Virginia suggested.
We also got funding from Microsoft with that's focused on unique cities. Los Angeles is one of them. So we do offer one-on-one support in Los Angeles. So if you go to our website and type in your zip code, you'll see it's a phone number you can call, and you won't get a recording. You'll actually get a person, and all our people who will be the customer service representatives are bilingual, so we can help in both English and Spanish.
I just wanted to see if Araceli had anything to add.
Yes, thank you so much, Dina. Yes, so I think one thing that is super key is resident engagement. And asking them, right, what barriers they're encountering. So for example, at Nickerson Gardens, again, one of our largest sites, we did survey the residents there to get a sense of, you know, what devices they have available, what their internet connectivity looks like. And only a third of the residents that responded, you know, shared that they were primarily using their phone as you know, a device to get connected. And a lot of the barriers that they were encountering were with different ISPs that were not providing them with, you know, the proper service. It wasn't fast enough. Sometimes it just was not adequate. And so, you know, the great thing was that once we were able to partner with Starry, they were able to address a lot of those needs. You know, residents are very, very satisfied with Starry services. They've shared that, you know, their engagement outreach efforts on site goes a really, really long way. They help us to enroll residents on the spot directly through the Affordable Connectivity Program. And like Virginia shared, essentially it is free for them if they enroll in their first tier plan, because that is fully covered by the ACP program. So I think just really continuing to build those relationships. Again, we have a digital ambassador program that helps us to promote Starry. If we don't have Starry, you know, available just yet, because they're currently only available at 9 out of our 14 public housing sites, you know, we do try to connect them with other internet service providers, but unfortunately not all of the ISPs are willing to come out to the sites or support them with the application process. There's just a lot of barriers. There's a lot of credit checks, you know, they have to put down a deposit. So, you know, Starry has eliminated all of that. There's no credit checks, there's no deposits. And so again, I think just really listening to the needs of residents has really helped us to, you know, build deeper relationships, not only with them, but also bringing in the right partners to address those needs.
I really want to shout out something that Araceli said around digital ambassadors and the importance of that engagement. And I think actually what we're seeing as a trend line in affordable housing as well is that folks are actually hiring, very intentionally hiring staff that are focused on digital equity and inclusion efforts. And I think that that's a really great positive trend line, because without that, and I have to tell you, the Digital Ambassadors program was really, truly amazing, because it was a bridge for Starry and our teams working in the communities to really be able to be on the ground, working with folks, earning trust, and being able to really make meaningful progress. And I'm just gonna say that it has been an amazing partnership. Nickerson Gardens is almost 1,100 units, and today Starry has almost 80%. That's 80% penetration in that community. And that says a lot about the work of digital ambassadors, but it also says a lot about the broadband deficit that existed in that community. And so, when all the oars are rowing in the right direction, you can make huge, substantive, meaningful impacts like that. And I think that's something that, we're really proud of our work with HACLA, because everything came together. The RAC communities, that's the resident coordinators, the digital ambassadors, our teams on the ground, everything came together so beautifully at a time when COVID was so heightened and scary in the communities. To be able to do that is pretty, it's a very proud moment. But also when you reflect on those numbers, you realize how unconnected folks were, and it's really kind of devastating to think about that.
That's very true. And we're also seeing our adoption rates steadily increasing across all of our other sites. Nickerson Gardens definitely has the highest adoption rate. And again, that is where we launched the community health worker program, which later evolved into the digital ambassador program, which we've now expanded across all of our sites. So we are starting to see our adoption rates, again, steadily increase. As of now, we do have, I believe, a 48 adoption rate across all the sites. But again, Nickerson Gardens being the highest adoption rate at 80%.
Thank you so much. And I love the point that you highlighted, Virginia, about digital ambassadors. I wonder if, Araceli, you could talk a little bit more about how you developed that program. And just for the audience, digital ambassadors usually are residents who are trained and go into the community. So there's that element of trust that Virginia was mentioning. So, and then I know we have questions from the chat. So let me just ask Araceli to answer that, and then we'll turn to the chat.
Yeah, sure. So the Digital Ambassador Program, again, it did evolve from the Community Health Worker Program. We do train residents between the ages of 18 to 24 years of age, which, tend to be a little bit more, tech versed already. But we do find that, a lot of, seniors, adults who may not be as savvy with technology tend to rely on the younger folks in their household. So, we figured why not formally train them, in partnership with EveryoneOn. Also in-house, we provided some additional trainings. And again, that helped us to build deeper relationships, deeper engagement with other residents. It helped with, having them buy into Starry, because again, Starry was fairly new. They had never really heard about it. So we had a Starry representative come and join us during some of our digital ambassador trainings to talk a little bit more about, the company and their efforts on the ground as they were starting to do more in-person engagement and outreach efforts, where they were coming in and doing, tabling events. So we do provide them with about 60 hours of trainings. And then they do about 40 hours of in-person resident outreach. So for example, they help us with flyering the sites when we're promoting events, resources, with any service providers that are on the sites. And so again, they are a little bit of a younger, population, and we've definitely gotten feedback like, hey, we could use some more digital literacy for our senior population. So that is something that we are looking forward to addressing a little bit more. But again, the model is a train the trainer model. So the goal is to have our existing digital ambassadors bring back this information, whether it's to their existing household or into the community. When we distributed the hotspots, a lot of the residents didn't know what a hotspot was or how to use it. And so that's when the digital ambassadors really, came into play. They, answered their questions. They came in to the computer lab and walked them through on how to, turn on the device, how to get it connected to their laptop. So they have really played just a really key role in just showing them, basic information, how to, log on to our computers and, send out an email or log on to stay connected with their family. So again, we are in the process of launching our next cohort of digital ambassadors. And again, this will be be in partnership with EveryoneOn. So it is an ongoing effort. The goal is to have about 5 to 10 digital ambassadors per site. We're not quite there just yet. And so we are still in the process of actively promoting the digital ambassador program, the benefits of being a digital ambassador, and potentially that'll lead to other job opportunities. But again, we are capped at 100 hours, and it is a paid internship. So I think that is definitely an incentive for our residents.
Great, thank you so much. All right, well, let's turn to the chat questions.
Yeah, so we did have a follow-up question for Araceli here in the chat, but I think Araceli just answered it about whether the digital ambassadors were compensated. And it says, it seems the training was provided for free and the expectation they would use this for benefit of the community, but you said they were compensated. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. So we were able to compensate them through one of our city programs. It's a pilot program. So payment in lieu of taxes. So again, this is in partnership through the city of Los Angeles, where we are able to receive some funding to support our digital ambassador program. But again, that's probably one of the I'd say maybe one of the issues that we're running into, because once they complete their hours, we're losing them, and we're like, hey, you're doing such a great job. We need to find a way to make this model a lot more sustainable, make it more long-term, because we're, investing so much time, energy, and efforts, and they're, starting to become much more visible and leaders on the ground, but then we start to lose them. So that is something that we're looking to see how we can fund the program long-term, either through partnerships or, again, just trying to find some additional sources to sustain that program long-term.
And then we did have another question in the chat. With many services going back to being in person now since the pandemic, how can you communicate the urgency and importance of digital inclusion and not lose the momentum of the past few years of development that we've seen during the pandemic?
From our perspective, we always go back to, let's go back in our time machine and remember where we were in 2019, which is kids still need to have internet access at home in order to complete their homework, in order to fully participate in school. And we only, I think, as a nation, understood how wide that broadband gap was when everything shut down, when libraries weren't available, community centers weren't available, when the Starbucks closed down. And then we realized how many families were relying on those community anchors. And I'll include Starbucks as a community anchor, but how much people were relying on those places for internet access that they should have at home. And today, as everything is shifting online, you file your taxes online, you apply for services online, you can work from home online. And for people who have disabilities or cannot leave their home as readily, do not have transportation, broadband access today is so much more than just, for Netflix. And I think that genie is out of the bottle. And I think people recognize that if we're going to be resilient as a country, we cannot allow a huge percentage of it to go without having a basic service, a basic and essential service like broadband at home. And I think that's reflected in the infrastructure money. There was $65 billion appropriated for broadband access, $42 billion of which will go directly to states to address the issue of unconnected households and underconnected households. There is a historic amount of money going towards digital equity efforts. One thing I would say to everyone that's listening on Zoom in this room is that there's a lot of money out there that every single person in this space should be talking to their local representatives about at the state level, at the federal level, to be a part of receiving that money. Because if we do not take that money and put it in the right hands, we will be back in the same place again.
That was so eloquent. Thank you so much. Were you going to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to add to what Virginia was saying. In addition to digital discrimination and Wi-Fi deserts, there are transit deserts, to the point that Kurt made earlier. There are food deserts. There are so many things that the internet is so essential for. We've got 19 residents across Jersey City who might otherwise need to take a couple buses and walk 3/4 of a mile to get to a centralized location to be able to take the classes that they're now taking online. Thanks to the ACP, thanks to EveryoneOn and the laptops that they've provided, they're able to do that online at home. We have a new MPH student who's interning with us and going to be working with a Ross service coordinator at a senior site and integrating telehealth education with the seniors who we have devices for so that they can become digitally literate enough to be able to access telehealth, because we find ourselves in a transit desert and half of the time our residents can't get to essential appointments because there's no physical way for them to get there. So I think it remains as important as ever, and hopefully we will all continue to beat this drum and it won't be forgotten.
One thing I want to add, we just released the third part in a 3-part series with Dr. John Horgan, who's like the guru in this field. So do encourage everyone to go to our website and check out the study. But one of the things he found was that when people are connected and they learn how to use the internet, they don't want to give it up. So our feeling is that now all these people are connected, it's going to be really hard to take it away from them. And we do believe they're going to fight for it. And I believe it's on our end too to fight for them to make sure it's not taken away. So that's why we need more like the ACP, more funding for digital literacy, more funding for computers to make sure everyone is connected and to use all these resources. And I do think as a nation, even globally, we're changing the way we access things. I just stopped to get something beforehand. There wasn't a menu. I had to get it through my phone. I was talking to a franchisee of a Dunkin' Donuts, and he said in the next year or two, every Dunkin' Donuts is going to have a drive-through. And those are changes that we're going to see because of COVID. And I think we have to adapt, and being connected is one of the biggest part of adapting to what we're going to be seeing in the future.
Thank you all. And I did want to piggyback on something Virginia said about the new infrastructure funding. So BEAD and Digital Equity Act and Middle Mile also were all announced last Friday. For the BEAD, which is over $42 billion, that's the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program. The governor has to sign a letter submitted by July 18th saying that they are interested in the program. But what's important about this program is that the states have to consult with PHAs. They have to consult with tribes. They have to consult with nonprofit organizations, with all kinds of organizations that serve the underserved, so that they understand where the problems are. And so what I'm trying to say is that it's incumbent upon you to make sure your voices are heard at this historic point. And in terms of the Digital Equity Act, PHAs can help their states develop their digital equity plan. You could actually be a grantee to the state to help them develop it. So please keep that in mind. The Digital Equity Act has 3 components. So the first one is the planning, which was just announced. That's $60 million. And states will have a year to complete their plan. And this is where you guys can come in. Then there's the state capacity grant, which is they're sort of combined, planning and state capacity, but that will be announced in early 2024. And that will provide funding for states to actually implement their digital equity plan. And then there's going to be a competitive program, which is going to be announced in mid-2024. And PHAs will be eligible to apply as grantees. So there's a lot of momentum in this field to answer the person in the chat. But please keep your eyes on the prize, and we will do our best, HUD will, to keep you all informed about these opportunities. Are there any other questions from the chat? Okay. Oh, we have a question in the back. Oh, it's the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program.
The BEAD money is a part of the larger infrastructure and jobs bill that was passed at the end of last year.
And while we're waiting, the Affordable Connectivity Program, which we've been talking about, the ACP, provides up to $30 a month for the residents that we serve. There's $14.2 billion that the FCC received. PHA residents are underrepresented with, in the total pool of people who have signed up. Our residents are underrepresented. And so we know that we need your help to help them get signed up and to advertise our mini guide. You can go to our website, just Google Connect Home USA at HUD.gov, and you'll find it. And then there's it's the mini guide to the ACP that'll walk you through how you can help your residents sign up. But,
And somebody
yeah.
helpfully put in the chat that for the to learn about the ACP is fcc.gov/ACP.
Yes, thank you very much. Yep.
And I just want to drive home Dina's point about the advocacy work that PHAs and others in this room and at this conference can do, and by just sharing JCHA's plans in the coming months. And so there's you can Google it to see if you have one in your state, but the majority of states, New Jersey not being one of them, have a state broadband commission. So New Jersey legislature approved for one to be developed about 9 months ago. And I suppose that that's in the works, but I plan when I'm back in the office to find out more about that. But if your state has a broadband commission, reach out to them, band together with other PHAs and reach out together, reach out to Dina and figure out who the Connect Home USA PHA participants are in your state to have a seat at that table.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I totally forgot to mention, most states do have a state broadband planning office. So yeah, make sure to touch base with them. Thanks. Thank you, Allison.
Thank you, everybody. This has been wonderful. I'd be very interested in using some of the ambassadors you guys have educated to come to our portfolio. So I know there's ambassadors in LA and we're in LA, so I'd be very interested in being able to get those same ambassadors within our own portfolio.
Araceli, that seems like something for you. Would you be willing to share your ambassadors maybe or at least do a train the trainer maybe?
Yeah, no, I think this is definitely a great opportunity for us to connect and see how we can partner together. And I'm more than happy to share some training material. Like I said, a lot of the material came from EveryoneOn, but yeah, our ambassadors are definitely we're in the process of recruiting more ambassadors because our last cohort just wrapped up. So we're in the process of getting them trained and onboarded and ready to deliver some trainings and some outreach. So yeah, let's definitely connect. I'll drop my contact information here in the chat, or maybe Dina, feel free to pass it along if it's not showing here immediately. But yeah, more than happy to connect.
Thank you so much. Kurt, did you want to add anything to the digital ambassador training?
Yeah, as mentioned, everyone on will definitely help out with that. We have 3 full-time staff members in Los Angeles, so that's a city that's easy for us to tackle.
Yes.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the
Oh,
question?
sorry. Yes. The question was whether there are any guidebooks to help people get started. So you're looking at right in front of you is the author of the first Connect Home USA playbook. Jason, you can raise your hand. So if you look up Connect Home USA playbook, it's a really easy to use, easy to understand, not very long guidebook that will walk you through the basics of how to put together a digital inclusion program at your community.
I did have another virtual question here.
Yes.
Well, first of all, Araceli put her email in the chat for you in-person people. It's araceli.hernandez, as her name is written up here, at hacla.org if you have any questions for her. And then I had a question, with services like ACP not having a guaranteed end date, how can you communicate buy-in/trust to residents, given that a service may not be here to stay?
Yeah, so the response we've gotten from the FCC is that they have a funding there for at least 5 years. So no, it's not a guarantee forever, but we feel like 5 years is really good runway with hope that funding will continue based on the success of the program. To date, I believe they have 11 million people registered, and they're still confident that they could have a runway of 5 years. So I know that's a lot longer than other offers that we've ever seen exist. So hopefully 5 years is enough of a window.
So as many of you may or may not know, the ACP is actually the successor program to the Emergency Broadband Benefit, the EBB, which was rolled out in May 2020 during the COVID emergency. That was a $50 subsidy. That transitioned at the end of last year to the ACP and the $30 subsidy. As part of the legislation that created both EBB and ACP, there are statutory requirements around notice to provide to residents and the opportunity to continue service once the program is discontinued, to cancel it without any penalty. And all of those options were made available to anyone that was participating in the EBB and then transitioned into the ACP. And I think that gave us a pretty decent playbook of the types of communications and the number of times we need to communicate to consumers to make it clear how they can continue their service at low cost when the subsidy runs out. But you're right, it's challenging to communicate a subsidy that is available to folks that is not a permanent subsidy. But if there are clear communications from the provider, and the onus again is on the internet service provider to be very clear that it is a government program, that there will be an end date to it, and that when that end date comes, the consumer will be provided plenty of notice in order to take action. Because the last thing we want is, one, we want people to be able to continue their service, but two, what we don't want are people falling into a billing cycle that they can't afford, because again, that perpetuates all of these things that we were talking about before, which is, credit issues and everything else, and being in arrears and then not being able to get service. So it is built into the law. So there are notice provisions that are required. And so that hopefully is getting communicated out by every provider.
Can I ask a follow-up question, Virginia, about, let's say that the ACP goes away tomorrow, let's pretend. What's the interest is there an interest for the private sector to continue low cost, to your point about customers? Is there, broadly, I know for your company there is, but for other companies, is there an argument to be made to continue a low cost offer?
Dina's trying to get me to say something that I probably shouldn't say. I will speak on behalf of Starry in that our digital equity program existed long before COVID did and long before the ACP, and our commitment to serving public and affordable housing communities will continue beyond the ACP. This is a core commitment on our part. It's deeply ingrained in our DNA as a company. We think it's good business too. And so, I can't speak on behalf of other folks in the industry, but my hope is that the industry will continue to evolve and that everyone will see the value in serving communities equitably and see the value in bringing great service to our income vulnerable communities. I'll say this, and this was the reason why we feel so adamantly against credit checks. First and foremost, our founder, he is an immigrant. He said when he first came to this country, he couldn't get anything because he didn't have any credit. And he came from India, and he was just like, well, credit, that this whole thing about a credit score and credit, like that doesn't exist where he came from. And so when he came here as a graduate student, it was sort of shocking and jarring that his value was being told whether or not he had a credit score, of which he had nothing. And so, we have taken a hard line to say that credit should not be determinant of whether or not you can get this essential service. And, the industry has started to move that way. And our hope is that as we continue to talk about the importance of broadband, that it will continue to do so and that providers will continue to evolve.
Thank you so much. I know we have just a few minutes left. Are there any other questions from the audience? Or any questions from the chat? No questions from the chat. One more question from the audience. You're more than welcome. Thank you for coming. All right. No more. Any other comments from the panel? Araceli, I don't want to leave you out.
No, thank you so much for having me. It's been a great pleasure. And again, I think just really highlighting the importance that, having internet or, connectivity is no longer a luxury. It is a necessity, and just really I know one of the questions earlier was about, right, how do we highlight the importance of digital inclusion? So I mean, we're paying bills online, educational platforms are continuing to evolve for virtual learning. Telehealth access is key. A lot of doctor's appointments are happening online. So I think there's just so much, like, the world has evolved in that direction already, despite the pandemic, but even more so with the pandemic. So I think just really making that information more accessible to residents, is key. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us today. If you have any questions at all, if you are embarking on this for the first time, feel free to reach out to HUD. You can contact us at connecthome@hud.gov, or I'm sure any of my fellow panelists. And otherwise, thank you so much. And I believe, is this the last session of the day?
We're actually be wrapping up in the plenary room
Okay.
for final remarks, but I guess we can wrap this session up. For my virtual friends, you can go ahead and log off.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
When are you up for re-election? Oh my gosh.